All right, let's begin our webinar. It's 6 minutes past the hour. So, hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining me today. I am humbled and I honor you for taking the time out of your busy day to invest in yourself, for committing to learning and educating yourself. Because, I believe that our investment for ourselves is proportionate to the results that we get from our business. So, I thank you for being here. Now, a little about me. I host two podcast shows. One is a daily 7 podcast, and the other one is a weekly show. And I'll tell you more about it later. In the meantime, here's what you're going to learn from this webinar. What is a podcast, and why do you need one? The top three myths or misconception about podcasting. Why now is the best time to get your podcast out there and leverage the power of iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio. The 6 simple steps to create and launch a successful podcast. My podcasting toolbox, the types of equipment and software that you need. Your podcast creation acceleration program plus a Q&A and bonus giveaway at the end. All right, is this for you? If you are a life coach, a business coach, dating coach, relationship coach, marriage coach, divorce coach, or you are an author, speaker, seminar leader, internet marketer, social media manager, nutrition coach, yoga instructor, or professional service provider like lawyer, accountant, real estate professional, or you have a passion for something that you love talking about, then this is for you. Now, on the other hand, who is this not for? Well, if you think about it, everyone has something they love talking about. Everyone is an expert about something. However, only those who take action really wins the race. So, if you think you're just here as information gatherer, sorry, this won't benefit you because unless you put these concepts and principles that I'm about to teach you into action, then nothing's gonna happen. Information is not power, as they say. It's taking action that's power. Okay, so some house rules. Number one, turn off any notifications you have, like Facebook, Twitter, email, and text. And number two, take notes, especially questions that you might have as we go along, because at the end of the presentation, I'll open the chat box for a Q&A session, and I'll try to answer as much as I can with the time that we have. Now, you're probably thinking, how did I ended up doing what I'm about to teach you? Good question. A couple of years ago, I had a cancer scare. Thank God it was just a cancer scare, but I took it seriously. I took inventory of my life and made changes 360 degrees from my health to my career to my relationship. My priorities shifted. And one of those was a deep realization that my life could be taken away from me just like that. And I was afraid tonight to die. I mean, actually, I didn't want to die. I had so much I wanted to do with my life. So I promised God in the universe that I will earn this second chance and that from then on, I'll make every day count by doing things I enjoy. One of the things I made changes was with my career as an RN. I've been a nurse half of my life, and although I love the profession, I lost that passion that I had early on. After my cancer scare, I wanted to be as far as possible from the hospital. I didn't want to get even near any hospital. So I vowed to change career and started searching for something I'm passionate about, but at the same time can make me money so I can quit my job. And fast forward to 13 months ago, I met my first mentor, John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire. And for some reason, I resonated with building a platform in the form of a podcast and decided to follow his footsteps. Today, 11 months later, I have my two podcasts up and running and have interviewed more than 300 inspiring women entrepreneurs across the globe on one of my podcasts, Today's Leading Women, and I enjoy every minute of it. My health podcast, on the other hand, transitioning to Paleo Made Easy, has been instrumental in changing not only my health and nutrition, but so of others. And all this had not been possible without this man, John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire. I thank John every day because without him, I wouldn't be where I am today. So again, thank you, John. Talk about the power of having a mentor to guide you. That's why I'm passionate about mentoring others as well. Okay, let's talk about some facts about podcasting. There are about 575 million active users on iTunes. 350 million people have smartphones. Only 4 out of 10 know what a podcast is. And 50% of the new cars have internet connectivity with a podcast app and Stitcher Radio built in. What does this mean to you and me? That there's a huge untapped resource waiting for us to grab our share. I love this quote. In the future, everyone will have a podcast, so start yours now. That's from Forbes magazine. Okay, so what's a podcast and why podcasting? A podcast is basically an internet radio show where you talk about what you love talking about. It cannot be simpler than that. All right, so why podcasting? Leverage. You know, the number one reason why podcasting thing is so important is because, as I've mentioned earlier, iTunes has a huge untapped market that we can take advantage of. Add the platform for SoundCloud and Stitcher Radio, and you are unstoppable. How about instant credibility? Having your own internet radio show instantly increase your credibility and authority in your industry. More people will become attracted to you because people naturally follows people with authority and credibility. Podcasting is a great relationship builder. People connect with you more because they hear you, they feel you, they trust you, and people do business to people they know, like, and trust, as you know. What about profit source? Podcasting is a great profit source. You can promote your own products and services in your show or someone else's products. And there's a whole myriad of ways to monetize your podcast once you've built a following and relationship with your listeners. If you are a blogger, for example, why not repurpose your content? Why not turn those hundreds of blog posts you already have and turn them into a podcast? Makes total sense, right? I can go on and on about the myriads of benefits having a podcast gives you, but I hope you see the value of adding this platform as a marketing tool to grow your business. All right, let's talk about the top 3 myths about podcasting or the top 3 misconceptions about podcasting. One of the greatest misconception people have about podcasting is that it's too hard, it's too complicated. They think it is, and more often they let this as an excuse not to get started. I hope you're not one of those people because I am here to tell you it's not that complicated. I mean, take me as an example. The only skill I know in my life is nursing, taking care of sick people. I have to learn this new skill of podcasting, and I'm the most non techie person on earth. But if I was able to figure this one out, then I have no doubt you can too. You know, there are only 3 things that you need: a decent microphone, your computer, and of course, an internet connection. That's it. That's the basic, that's the foundation of having a podcast. You can't make money with a podcast. This is another myth about podcasting that people have, that you cannot make money with a podcast. Well, there are several ways to make money with a podcast: sponsorships, selling your own products, selling other people's products. In fact, my mentor, John Lee Dumas, is making a whopping $298,146 in income last month alone based on his monthly income report. So you better believe there's money in podcasting. What about the myth about downloads and equals money? You know, the People think that you have to have thousands upon thousands of downloads before making money with your podcast. While it's true that the more downloads you have, the more sponsors you can attract. There are niche podcasts that have a few hundreds of downloads and yet attract a sponsor willing to pay for airtime in that niche podcast. So don't be deceived with the illusion that you have to have gazillions of downloads to profit from your podcast. Now, why now is the best time? We're going to answer this question because I know a lot of you have this probably in your mind. One of the big reason is it's a wide open market. Just what I've told you earlier, there are only 4 out of 10 people know what a podcast is. There are about 450 million blogs out there versus only 225,000 active podcasts. And ladies, there's a huge lack of female voices in the podcasting arena based from a survey that Fortune magazine did last year. And when these big names are all jumping into the wagon, wouldn't you want to jump in as well? They obviously see a great benefit in podcasting. That's why they added it into their marketing arsenal, so don't get left behind. Entrepreneur on Fire by John Lee Dumas, Recharge Life by Brandon Burchard, Smart Passive Income by Pat Flynn, Glambition Radio by Ali Brown, Ask Gary V by Gary V. Vaynerchuk, The Tim Ferriss Show by Tim Ferriss, and on and on and on. Big names in the podcasting industry are coming up, so don't get left behind. All right, now the big question. What's the big question? Can I do this? You're probably asking yourself, well, I see the benefits, I see the value, I see why I need to jump in, but can I really do it? Well, no need to worry because I am going to teach you the 6 steps to create and launch a successful podcast. Here it is. We're going to tackle each one of them. There are 6 steps to it that equates to the 6 milestones. All right, so the first one is establishing your topic. What topic are you going to talk about? What is the name or title of your podcast going to be? Who are your target audience or your target listeners? Your avatar. Who do you want to serve? What format do you want your podcast to be? What length of each episode? Would it be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 1 hour, or even 10 minutes? Is it going to be interview based or topic based or both? Are you going to do audio or video or both? Is it going to be a daily or weekly show? Is it going to be self host or co host? Meaning, are you going to have somebody hosting the show with you or are you going to be the only one hosting the show? All right, step 2, order your recording, your editing, your hosting equipment. Plus, if you are doing interviews, find and book your guests. So there are a few equipment that you're going to be needing. One is, of course, your laptop or your desktop computer, an external microphone, Skype and eCam call recorder for your interviews, Schedule Once for booking your guests, ScreenFlow for recording and editing your audio and video files, Auphonic to automatically edit and level your audios, plus Auto Syndicate, ID3 tag editor for tagging your MP3 files, Libsyn to host your final audios, SoundCloud and Stitcher Radio to syndicate your podcast. And like what I've said, if planning to add interviews, find and book your guests. So these are the equipment that I use. I use a laptop when I travel. I use a desktop when I am home. I use Audio Technica 2020 USB microphone with a pop filter when I'm traveling, and the Hale PR40 with a pop filter when I am home. Skype for my interviews, the eCam call recorder to record it, and Schedule Once for my guests for scheduling my guests, ScreenFlow for recording and editing my audio files and video files, or Phonic to automatically level the sound so I don't have to do it manually, and ID3 tag editor to tag my audio files. This is to so that to make sure that you have the descriptions, the title, the name of the show, the name of the host correct, and it's gonna show on iTunes. Libsyn to host my audio files. I use Libsyn to host my audio files, and then SoundCloud and Stitcher Radio. I use them for syndicating my podcast. SoundCloud you can use as a hosting audio hosting provider, but I've heard some difficulties with it, so I have never used it as a hosting provider, but just as a syndicating platform, because you want to tap into the platform and the market that SoundCloud has, because some people might want to just listen on SoundCloud and Stitcher Radio as well. All right, step three, get your website up, your artwork and intro and outro done. So if you are new and you don't have a podcast yet or a website yet, I highly encourage you to use Appendipity themes for new websites and use PowerPress plugin for existing websites. Both of my podcast site, Today's Leading Women and Transitioning to Paleo Made Easy, are using Appendipity themes. And then get your podcast artwork done. This is really important. This is the artwork that you see on iTunes. The size is 1500 by 1500 pixels. Recently, they changed it to 1400 by 1400, but I suggest that you don't go beyond or lower than that. And you can get your artwork done through 99designs.com or fiverr.com. It's really important to get your artwork to something, and I suggest that you look into iTunes before creating your artwork so you can see what really pops out, because there's one thing that your artwork needs to pop out so that people can see your artwork. And then of course get your intro to your podcast not done. This is the one that's going to play before your content, the intro, which includes the name of your show, your name as a host, what your show is about, what's in it for your listeners. That's really important. And I use the services of Tim Page at makemyintro.com and Isabel Russell for at Music Radio Creative. And of course, get your outro to your podcast done. This is the one that is playing after your main content. So you have your intro, you have your content, and then your outro. The outro is really important because that is where you're going to include a call to action for a free gift, for example, in exchange for their name and email address, so you can start building your list from the get-go. You want to do this way in the beginning to create something that you can give away so that you can get your listeners back to your website and then get their name and email address so that you can start building your list. And also you are training your listeners to do something. So if you don't have anything yet to offer, like your own products or services, I highly encourage you to create something for free. Maybe a PDF report, maybe an audio file, something that they can get in exchange for their name and email address, because this one does you two things. First of all, it starts building your list way from the start, and second is that it trains your listeners to do something. They know that they have to do something. Later on, when you add monetization strategies on your podcast, they know, they are trained already that they have to do something. Okay? All right, step four, record your first 5 episodes or conduct your 5 interviews. So if doing interview based, record your first 5 interviews. And I'm saying 5 interviews or 5 topics based on a weekly show. So for example, you have a weekly show. You are gonna need at least 5 audio files ready to go on launch day. So 3 is going to go live on the date that you're going to launch. The 2 are going to be on your content for the next couple of weeks. Obviously, if you have a weekly show like I do, you need more than that. Now you have to determine how long you want your episodes to be and stick with it, because content and consistency is paramount on iTunes. They are the foundation of your future rankings on iTunes. So stick with it. Be consistent with your content and with when you are going to release your episodes. So if you started with Mondays, then do every Mondays every week. Now use your USB microphone and ScreenFlow to record and edit your audios. The reason I love ScreenFlow is because I can record and edit both audio and video. Some people use GarageBand or Audacity or other kind of audio softwares out there, but I only use ScreenFlow for Mac. And if you're a PC user, you can use Camtasia. All right, so like what I've said, you'll need 3 episodes to go live on launch day. So, for example, episode 00 is going to be your intro, wherein you're going to talk about you, your story, what the show is about, what's the benefits that your listeners will get on your show. And then episode 01 will be the first topic or the first interview. Episode 02 is going to be the second topic or second interview. Then the other two will be for your next 2 weeks of content if doing a weekly show. Obviously, if you're doing more, you need more episodes. That way, you have enough time to create the next contents. If you have this ready on launch day, you won't be stressed of creating the other two because you already have uh, two uh, 2 weeks of worth of content. So that's really important to get that one. All right, step 5 is to edit and upload your audio. So I use ScreenFlow to edit my audio files. I just add the intro and the content and the outro to each episode, and then I export that one as MP4 file. And then after that one, I upload the MP4 file to Auphonic for final editing and leveling. I love Auphonic because it automatically levels the sound, decreases the noise, so I don't have to do those editing manually. And then after that one, I download the final MP3 file from Auphonic to my desktop so I can tag them. So using the ID3 tag editor, I tag my audio files. So tagging just means inputting those information like name of the show, the description, the host name, so that it will appear on iTunes correctly. So that's really important to know. You have to tag your MP3 files and then upload and pre-publish your tag MP3 files to Libsyn. So I'm very big on batching. So I do my editing on one day, I upload them on Libsyn, pre-publish them so that I don't have to go there every day. And it's really important to know that when registering your show inside Libsyn for the first time, make sure to fill in needed information correctly so it shows on iTunes correctly as well. So it's name of the show, the author, which is the host, the category, the description, the keywords. These are really important information that you have to make sure you fill them up correctly when you first register on Libsyn or your hosting provider. You only need to do this one time, but you need to do it correctly. And of course, when uploading your first 3 episodes inside Libsyn, make sure to time each episode with a few minutes interval from each other. So, for example, your first episode 00, you time it at 10 o'clock. Episode 01, it will be 10:05. Episode 02 at 10:10. That way, when it goes live on iTunes, they are going to go live chronologically. So it's 10:05, 10 o'clock, 10:05, 10:10, so that iTunes know which one goes out first. Really important to remember that. And step 6, the fun part, launch your podcast. So log into your Libsyn account, get your show's RSS feed, and if you have registered an account on iTunes, log in if you already have one. If you don't have one, register an account. And then click on the podcast icon, submit a podcast, fill in the needed information like your name, category, RSS feed, of course, and then wait for iTunes confirmation email. They're going to be sending you email to confirm that your podcast is live, and it may take a few hours to a few days, even 2 weeks. So make sure to submit your RSS feeds to iTunes no later than 72 hours prior to your launch date to give way for some delays in approving it. So make sure that you are submitting your RSS feeds on iTunes ahead of time. And once your podcast is live, start spreading the word to get listeners to your show. Remember, your rankings will depend on the number of downloads per episode, number of ratings and reviews, consistency and content, and 24-hour number of downloads per episode. So, for example, today you've got thousands of downloads on your first episode. Tomorrow it's gonna be twice that one. It that one will really help you get to new and noteworthy. So it's downloads, it's reviews, it's content, of course, and consistency. Okay, so let's recap what we've just covered so far. We've covered what a podcast is and why do you need one. The top three myths about podcasting. We busted the top three misconceptions people have about podcasting. Why now is the best time to get your podcast out and leverage the power of iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio. The six simple steps to create and launch a successful podcast that we just went through. And I've shared with you my podcasting toolbox. There are types of equipment and software that I use. Now, here's what I have for you. I am doing a 6-week live bootcamp where I walk you through the 6 steps on a weekly basis. The 6 steps equates to a weekly milestone. So, for example, on week 1, we're gonna talk about step 1, or we're gonna be tackling establishing your topic and everything that is included there, so that for that week we're going to be completing that milestone, so that by the next week you are ready to go for the next step. And there's a logic behind this madness. You have to do this one chronologically so you can get to where you want to go, from having no podcast to having a podcast. And then week 2 will cover step 2, which are getting your equipment. And if you are doing your interviews, you need to start finding and booking your guests at this time. And then step 3, we're going to cover week 3, we're going to cover step 3, which is getting your websites up, your artwork, your intro and outro. Week 4, we're going to cover step 4, which is recording your first 5 episodes if you do a weekly show. And if you do more than that, obviously you need more. And at this time, you have to do your interviews also. You have to start on week 3, scheduling your interviews so that you have as many interviews as you have on the launch day. And then week 5, we're going to cover step 5, which is editing and uploading your episodes. I highly encourage every one of you, to do batching. I batch my interviews. I do Tuesday interviews. I do Fridays interview editing, so that I have the content for the whole week, because I do a 7-day podcast plus one weekly show. So I have to do batching, and it really helped me get my episodes. So I am not stressed about the following day if I don't have one. And remember, you have to be consistent in releasing your episodes, because that helps with your rankings on iTunes that you want to take advantage of on the new and new worthy, which is the first 8 weeks. All right, week 6 is step 6, which is launching your podcast. Plus, we're gonna have a bonus strategy of what to do next. And now that you have launched, okay, so now you have created your podcast, you have launched it. So what's next? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do next? What's gonna happen now? We are gonna be focusing on growing your listeners so that you can start monetizing it. You cannot monetize without a audience or listeners. So we're going to be talking about that. It would be a bonus strategy for you. Now, the total cost for this 6-week live bootcamp is $997. But today, I am giving you all a special discount, because I truly want to help as many people as I can to pay it forward by having mentored by the greatest podcaster out there. I know how hard it is to get started. And if I could just make the journey less stressful for all of you, I feel it's my moral obligation to do so. So your total investment today is half the price, and I'm giving it that price to remove the bar that some of you might have. So your total investment today is $497 for 6 weeks of live coaching with me. We are going to be co-creating your podcast together. So I'm inviting you to enroll for this live bootcamp, and together let's co-create your very own podcast or internet radio show. You owe it to yourself and to people you could touch with the message and your passion. So I'd love for you to go there to sign up at www.podcastcreationsimplified.com. That's podcastcreationsimplified.com. Class starts on February 16 for 6 weeks. So I'll highly encourage you to go there now at podcastcreationsimplified.com. I'll also put it on our chat box. That's podcast creation simplified.com. I'd love for you to join me on this 6 week bootcamp, and together let's create your podcast. Let's launch it together so you can get your message out there. All right. I also included with this with our bootcamp a bonus giveaway. You're gonna be I'm gonna giving you a Q&A bonus as included for because we're gonna have a weekly live coaching call, but we're also gonna give you another day for answering any questions you are stuck with for that week's milestone. So you not only are on a call with me on once but twice a week. So you're gonna have we're going to have one day to create your podcast and another day to answer your question. You'll also have access to a private Facebook group where you can connect with others, ask questions, get support, and of course, I'll be there too so you can ask me any questions that you might have. So again, enroll now by clicking the link on your chat box or going to www.podcastcreationsimplified.com. All right, so and by the way, you have nothing to lose. You can cancel anytime and get a full refund. If you're not satisfied for any reasons at all, just ask for a refund and you'll get it right away. So enroll now by going to the link that I provided inside the chat box. That's www.podcastcreationsimplified.com. We're going to have a live weekly webinar. You're also going to get a one weekly Q&A session in addition to the live weekly webinar. And with the live webinar, you're going to get the link to join every week, and then you get the replay via email as well. Again, the link is podcastcreationsimplified.com. All right, so let's do some Q&A. If you have any questions, please write them on the chat box. I'm going to be answering them as much as I can. All right. So I think we can call it a wrap. Again, for those of you who haven't signed up, I'd love for you to go at podcastcreationsimplified.com. And thank you so much. I really appreciate every one of you. I really appreciate the time. I hope I've given some value. I hope this was helpful to all of you. If um, if you have any questions, please email them at marie at podcastcreationsimplified.com. Thank you very much once again and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.